Cyberattacks on Israeli infrastructure, 2020-2021. In the high-stakes world of cyber warfare, where unseen battles shape the geopolitical landscape, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, waged an aggressive and sophisticated campaign between 2020 and 2021 that targeted Israel's critical infrastructure. These cyberattacks, attributed to Iranian cyber operatives linked to the IRGC, were part of a broader strategy to disrupt Israeli society, undermine public confidence, and retaliate against perceived Israeli aggression. For the IRGC, these cyber operations were not merely acts of digital sabotage. They were a demonstration of Iran's growing cyber prowess, a response to Israel's covert operations against Iran's nuclear program, and a calculated effort to reshape the balance of power in the region. The origins of this cyber confrontation can be traced back to the shadow war between Iran and Israel, a protracted and covert conflict that had escalated in recent years. Israel, determined to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons, had carried out a series of cyber attacks, assassinations, and covert operations targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure and IRGC operatives. In response, Iran's leadership turned to the IRGC's elite cyber warfare division to strike back in the digital domain, where Tehran could project power and inflict damage without provoking open military confrontation. By 2020, the IRGC's cyber forces, operating under the command of Iran's Supreme Cyber Council and supported by proxy hacker groups such as APT-33, Elfin, and APT-34, Oil Rig, had refined their capabilities to launch highly coordinated cyberattacks. These groups, which had previously targeted Western governments, oil companies, and critical infrastructure, shifted their focus to Israel, identifying vulnerabilities in the country's water supply, transportation systems, and financial institutions. The first wave of attacks came in April 2020, when Iranian hackers targeted Israel's water supply systems, attempting to manipulate industrial control systems, ICS, that regulated the flow of water to civilian populations. The attack, which aimed to poison Israel's water supply by increasing chlorine levels to dangerous concentrations, was a chilling demonstration of Iran's ability to target civilian infrastructure with devastating consequences. Israeli officials, alerted by early warnings from cybersecurity teams, managed to thwart the attack before any damage was done, but the incident exposed the vulnerability of Israel's critical infrastructure to state-sponsored cyber threats. The attack on Israel's water supply was a watershed moment that sent shockwaves through the Israeli defense establishment. For the IRGC, the operation was a strategic message. Iran was willing to target civilian infrastructure in response to Israeli provocations, and its cyber capabilities were sophisticated enough to inflict significant harm. The IRGC's objective was clear: create fear and uncertainty among the Israeli population while demonstrating that Iran could retaliate in cyberspace for any perceived aggression. But the IRGC's cyber campaign against Israel did not stop there. Over the next year, Iranian hackers intensified their operations, targeting a wide range of Israeli infrastructure and institutions. In July 2020, Iranian cyber operatives launched a series of ransomware attacks on Israeli banks and financial institutions, encrypting critical data and demanding hefty ransoms to restore access. These attacks were designed not only to disrupt Israel's financial sector, but also to erode public trust in the country's economic stability. The IRGC's cyber operatives also turned their attention to Israel's transportation systems. In October 2020, Iranian hackers targeted the Israel railways system, attempting to disrupt train operations and cause widespread chaos. While Israeli cybersecurity experts successfully mitigated the attack before it caused significant damage, the incident highlighted the growing sophistication of Iran's cyber capabilities and its willingness to target civilian infrastructure to achieve its strategic objectives. As 2021 unfolded, the IRGC's cyber campaign reached new heights. In April 2021, Iranian hackers launched a highly coordinated attack on Israeli medical institutions and research facilities involved in COVID-19 vaccine development. The attack, which sought to steal sensitive research data and disrupt Israel's vaccine rollout, was part of a broader Iranian effort to undermine Israel's pandemic response and gain a strategic advantage in the global race for vaccine supremacy. While Israeli cybersecurity teams managed to contain the breach, the attack underscored the IRGC's ability to target high-value assets in real time. The most audacious of Iran's cyberattacks came in July 2021, when Iranian hackers breached the networks of Amatal Data, one of Israel's largest logistics companies. The breach allowed Iranian operatives to gain access to a vast network of supply chain data, potentially compromising the security of Israel's import and export operations. The IRGC's ability to infiltrate supply chain networks demonstrated a level of cyber sophistication that alarmed Israeli defense officials and prompted a nationwide review of cybersecurity protocols. The IRGC's cyber offensive against Israel was not merely about causing disruption. It was part of a broader strategy of cyber deterrence aimed at reshaping the balance of power in the region. By targeting Israel's critical infrastructure, the IRGC sought to create a credible cyber threat that would deter future Israeli covert operations against Iran's nuclear program and military assets. The IRGC understood that while Israel had superior conventional military capabilities, Iran's asymmetric cyber capabilities provided a powerful means to retaliate without triggering a direct military confrontation. For Israel, the wave of Iranian cyberattacks was a wake-up call that highlighted the growing vulnerability of its digital infrastructure. While Israel had long been considered a global leader in cybersecurity, the scale and sophistication of the IRGC's operations underscored the need for constant vigilance and investment in advanced cyber defense technologies. The attacks prompted Israel's National Cyber Directorate to accelerate efforts to strengthen the country's cyber resilience, improve information sharing between government and private sector entities, and enhance real-time threat detection capabilities. The IRGC's cyber campaign also had broader geopolitical implications. The attacks on Israeli infrastructure heightened tensions between Iran and Israel, bringing the region perilously close to open conflict. The cyber confrontation further fueled the ongoing shadow war between the two nations, where covert operations, cyber attacks, and proxy conflicts became the preferred means of advancing strategic objectives without triggering all-out war. Despite the growing costs of escalation, the IRGC's cyber strategy remained firmly rooted in its doctrine of asymmetric warfare. For Iran, cyberspace provided a battleground where it could challenge Israeli superiority and project power beyond its borders. The success of the cyber attacks on Israeli infrastructure demonstrated that Iran's reach extended not just through proxies and covert operations, but also through the invisible and unpredictable domain of cyberspace. By the end of 2021, the IRGC's message was clear. Iran's cyber capabilities had matured, its operatives were relentless, and its ability to target critical infrastructure and disrupt the lives of civilians in adversary nations was a reality that could no longer be ignored. The cyber attacks on Israeli infrastructure were not just isolated incidents. They were a declaration that Iran was prepared to fight and win in the digital domain, where borders were meaningless and the rules of engagement were constantly evolving. The IRGC's cyber operations in 2020 and 2021 marked a turning point in the region's cyber conflict, demonstrating that Iran was no longer a passive target of Israeli cyber operations, but an active and formidable player, capable of inflicting real damage on its adversaries. As the world watched, the invisible war between Iran and Israel unfolded in cyberspace, where the stakes were high, the consequences were unpredictable, and the battle for digital dominance was far from over.